I found a journal in my new apartment, and now I can't sleep. All right, let me start by saying I'm not the type to get scared easily. I don't believe in ghosts or any of that paranormal crap. But what's been happening to me over the last couple of weeks? I don't even know what to believe anymore. So, I moved into this apartment about a month ago. It's not much, but hey, it's mine, and I needed a fresh start. The place is old, with squeaky floors and those old-school radiators that make the pipes rattle at night. Charming, right? Anyway, everything was normal, until I found this journal. I was putting away groceries one day when I spotted it, shoved all the way in the back of a kitchen cupboard. And when I say shoved, I mean hidden, like someone really didn't want it to be found. But I'm curious by nature, so of course I grabbed it and opened it up. It was one of those old leather-bound notebooks with pages that were all yellowed and frayed at the edges. It was written by someone named Elise, and it started off pretty normal. She talked about her job, her friends, the usual life stuff. But the further I read, the more unsettling it got. She started mentioning this guy who lived upstairs. Elise said she never actually saw him, but she could hear him moving around at odd hours, like 3 or 4 in the morning. You know, normal apartment noise. But then she wrote about how she'd hear him talking, except it didn't sound like he was talking to anyone else, just whispering to himself, every single night. I figured, okay, she's probably just paranoid. I've had weird neighbors before. But then she described this sound that started happening right after the whispers. She called it a wet thudding, like someone dropping something heavy and, well, kinda squishy. It happened 3 times, always 3. Thud, thud, thud. At this point, I'm thinking, yeah, all right, this chick's just got an overactive imagination. But then I get to the part that actually made me nervous. She started seeing things. She wrote about these shadowy figures. At first, they were just in the corners of her room, blending into the darkness. But as the entries went on, they started getting closer. She'd wake up in the middle of the night and swear something was in her room, watching her from the shadows. She tried to tell herself it was sleep paralysis, or maybe she was just dreaming. Until it wasn't. One night, she wrote that she woke up and saw something standing at the foot of her bed. She didn't go into too much detail, but she said it was tall, way taller than any person should be. Its limbs were too long, like its arms were hanging almost to the floor, and its head was wrong, tilted in a way that shouldn't have been possible. She said she couldn't scream, couldn't move. She just lay there, staring at this thing, until it finally melted back into the darkness. At this point, I'm sitting there, wide-eyed, holding this journal like it's a ticking time bomb. I wanted to stop reading, but I couldn't. I needed to know what happened next. Elise started spiraling. She wrote about hearing the thudding sound more often, but it wasn't coming from upstairs anymore. It was coming from inside her own apartment, right outside her bedroom door. And then she wrote something that made my stomach turn. I think it wants me to open the door. That was her last entry. No explanation, no goodbye or I'm leaving, just nothing. Now, at this point, I'm freaked out, but I convince myself it's just some story she made up. People write weird things in journals, right? Except, that night I started hearing things. Faint whispers coming from the vents. At first I thought it was just the building settling or maybe the neighbors, but then I heard it. Thud, thud, thud. I shot up in bed, heart pounding. I was sweating, but I told myself I was being stupid. It's just a noise. Old buildings make noises all the time. But then it happened again. Louder this time. Thud, thud, thud. It was coming from the hallway right outside my door. Now, at this point, any sane person would have stayed in bed, right? Nope. I grabbed a baseball bat and swung the door open, ready to face whatever was out there. But there was nothing, just the empty hallway. I laughed it off, tried to shake off the nerves, but deep down something felt off. And then, last night was different. I woke up around 3 a.m. drenched in sweat. The room was cold, like freezing cold. And I just knew something was wrong. My body was screaming at me not to move, but I couldn't help it. I glanced down at the foot of my bed, and there it was. Tall, twisted, its limbs too long, its head cocked at this weird, broken angle, just like Elise described. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. I couldn't move. I was completely paralyzed. We just stared at each other. Well, I stared. It didn't have eyes. Or at least, not that I could see. And then, slowly, it started to melt back into the shadows, just like it did for Elise. I haven't slept since. I can't. Every time I close my eyes, I feel like it's going to be there when I open them. And the worst part? The whispers are getting louder. They don't come from the vents anymore. They come from my closet. I'm leaving this apartment tomorrow. I don't care if I lose my deposit or if I have to crash on a friend's couch. I'm not sticking around to see what happens next. If you ever find an old journal in some dark, forgotten corner of your place, just leave it there. Trust me, some things are better left alone.